Hey, this is Jared Mirsky, and this is another episode of Rebranding Cannabis. We have an amazing woman, Sue Taylor, aka Mama Sue, who is not only an amazing woman, mother, advocate, teacher, and pioneer, but she's also the CEO and founder of the pharmacy, and is also the first and only African American woman to own and operate a dispensary in Berkeley. This is Rebranding Cannabis. I'm your host, Jared Mirsky, and you're listening to the show that helps the industry grow. Hear from industry titans, thought leaders, and the up-and-coming founders of this multi-billion-dollar industry. Presented by Wick and Mortar. Sue lives her life through spirituality and meditation, which is how she also discovered holistic living and the vision for a pharmaceutically-free lifestyle, not only for herself, but for others. This ultimately led Sue to educate and advocate for elders, teaching them the basics of cannabis while promoting the use of this natural remedy instead of pharmaceutical drugs. Sue is extremely sought out and has been featured in Forbes, Sway's Morning Show, CBS, California Health Report, Wall Street Journal, and so much more. Sue's mission is to continue to educate on a global level to further destigmatize the use of cannabis. And Sue, welcome to Rebranding Cannabis. Thank you so much for being a part of my show.
Thank you ever so much, Jared. It's awesome to be here. It's an absolute pleasure.
Where are you at right now?
I'm in Burlingame, California, bringing this recording to you all. I'm doing what they call a staycation. I don't live very far away. We're on a little vacation, and you don't have to get on the airplane to go. We're just by the water.
Gotta love that. So Sue, you've accomplished quite a bit in your life, and I think for a lot of people now knowing what you do, they probably have a lot of questions, much like myself. How did you start? Are you a cannabis consumer yourself? What exactly was it that enlightened you to, reach a path towards, using cannabis and cannabinoids as an alternative to pharmaceuticals? Given you're a Catholic woman, and this was something that was never a part of your life. This was a drug as far as you were concerned then, right?
Yes. I tell you, Jared, 12 years ago, if anyone had said to me that I would be an advocate for cannabis, I would have said, "Oh, you've been smoking too much, baby," because I never ever would have thought I would be at this place. And the journey has been it's been quite incredible because I've learned so much through the process. As you know, I was a Catholic school principal, the DARE program and all of that stuff. And I initially got into the what what got my attention to it was my son, who had never been in trouble, college, all of that, all of that stuff, business owner. When he calls me telling me he says, "Mom, I know how you can get your holistic center you've always wanted." And so I said, "Oh, well," I get a phone call from him. I'm in Georgia at the time. And I said, "How?" And he says, "Oh," he said, "You know that, Mom, you know what all that meditation stuff you like and yoga and Reiki and all that?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, it would be funded by a cannabis dispensary." I said, "A cannabis dispensary?" I said, "You talking about that marijuana stuff?" "Yes, Mom. Yes. Yes, Mom. I'm learning it's a healing medicine. And your entire holistic center could be funded with that." So I said, "Okay. All right." I said, "Where are you learning this stuff?" And he says, "I've been going to Oaksterdam, learning all about it, Mom." He said, "It's a healing medicine." I said, "Well, send me everything. Send me what they're telling you. Send me the information." And so this is the honest God's truth. I hung up the phone I sat down. I said, okay, God, where did I go wrong? Sent this boy to Catholic school all his life and the college. And now he calls and tells me he wants to sell weed. Where did I go wrong? I said, I haven't lost him the drugs in all this time, and I'm certainly not going to lose him now. Within 2 weeks, I had packed 2 bags, was on an airplane coming to save him from drugs. And I did not go back to my home in Georgia for 10 years. 10 years. That's how involved I got. And through that journey, you see, that's why I know this journey for all of us is divinely inspired, because the universe used my son to pull me in. Nobody else could have done it. No one. He pulled me in because I thought to save him from drugs. And what I've learned in the process is just unbelievable. I became the trusted face of medical cannabis. And it has propelled my journey to work it with the senior population. And there's an added component to the senior population that was just brought to me a couple days ago by my brother. He said, why are you so diligent? You always say Jamal got you into the industry. But the senior aspect, he said, why were you so diligently? Because I've been diligently at it, traveling all over the United States, taking every magazine that would come to me wanting a story, Bloomberg, Forbes, all of them. It was day and night for me. And you know what it was, Jared? And it didn't dawn on me. You know, this pandemic got everybody reflecting on their life and seeing where they're going and where they've been. What has happened is I had a girlfriend. She was my friend since 8th grade, my best girlfriend in the world, that died from cancer. She had pancreatic cancer. And I visited her every day in the hospital. And I came to her. I said, I just began working in the cannabis dispensary. Cannabis arena. I said, Sonia, I said, I think you should try cannabis. I think you should try cannabis. It could help. And you know what she said to me? Now, this is a girl I grew up with through college and everything. This is what she said to me. Now, she smoked weed all the time. I didn't. She said, oh, yeah, I'm going to smoke a little herb. I'll be right back. I said, okay. She says to me, no, I'm not going to try. This is in the hospital. I'm not going to try. I'm not going to try that. I don't want those drugs in my system. That's what she said to me. So from that day, my job became, with the help of Stephen D'Angelo, to help eliminate the stigma that surrounded cannabis. And that's what I do.
Now let's go back a bit, because you mentioned a program that you were involved with called DARE. We've all heard of it. It was something that failed miserably. Why do you think that failed so bad as it relates and pertains to, well, helping people become more aware of drugs, period? From what I understand, it only encouraged kids to try drugs sooner, which is, from what I understand, also the reason why they decided to discontinue that program. Is that correct?
That's correct. The DARE program did not work. It did not work. And it was the fight against it really just turned people off. The kids just wasn't buying it. Plus, it was mostly African Americans that were being incarcerated, people of color. It just wasn't working at all. So they discontinued it. But I was an advocate of it. We had the police would come in at least once a month. It just did not work.
Yeah, and I know you're working close with Steve. Steve's a good friend as well, and I know that he's got a really, really strong nonprofit project he's been working on for a while now, the Last Prisoner Project. I know that you're also involved in that, and you've played a role in, helping lobby a few things. Can you tell us a little bit about that as it pertains to Last Prisoner Project and kind of your background?
Now, I haven't done so much with Steve about the prison program.
Okay.
I haven't. I'm not a part of that, so I can't speak to that. But I know that I will at some point because it's something that I would be interested in doing. We just haven't gotten to that, and I just did a podcast with him a week from yesterday, but we mentioned it slightly, and he said we would revisit that.
Good. Well, I think it's an amazing program, and it sounds like you're obviously a huge advocate for prison reform. So,
Yes.
what are you doing in that regard? And what can you tell us about the problem that the cannabis industry currently faces as it relates to diversity in the industry?
Well, one good thing is that with Black Lives Matter, there's a lot of attention and help and highlights that's being brought into the disproportionate incarceration of people of color, mainly African American males. And so, one of the things that we do at Pharmacy Berkeley, when people of color, African Americans, want help, we help them through the process of giving them knowledge about it. But as far as the overall uh, um, aspects of it, I really do think now the equity program. Now we weren't equity. We didn't get our permit through the an equity program. We did it with our family's money.
What
We
does it take
filled
to
out
do something like
forms.
that?
I'm
What does
sorry,
it
say
take?
it again.
I said, what does it take to do something like that? To create a course for an actual college and have that approved as an ongoing regimen?
You mean with the city council of Berkeley?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah, the
this
Oaksterdam.
was the city. Yeah, this was the Cannabis Commission of Berkeley.
Mm.
They had already had 3 cannabis dispensaries in Berkeley, and they were going to open it up to one more applicant. And so they were in the process. They wanted some formal written regulations, and so once a month we would go in, and it was people, whoever wanted to come in, we would go in and give input on what should be in place. And we did that for over two years. We would go and help with that process. And it's in place today where we have regulations for Berkeley, and we were a part of that.
Now, let's kind of rewind a little bit because I think a huge part of what's made you successful today is also perhaps what you've learned in the past. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've learned in the past that you've now been able to apply to the cannabis industry as well as your position in the space? Because you're quite the thought
Yeah.
leader and pioneer. So,
Well, okay, and this is a message for people who wanting to get into the industry and don't have a clue of how to do it. This this is what I did. I was an educator, right? I was a teacher, then I was a principal. So I educated. So my profession as educator just went into educating people about cannabis, whether it's the city council, the directors and administrators of senior care facilities, or going out and doing presentations across the country about cannabis. So, if you're wanting to get into the industry, the best way to do it is look at what you're doing now and find a need in the cannabis industry and do that. I
that
educated. That was my profession. I was an educator. Well, I'm an educator now, but I'm not educating students and teachers. I'm educating administrators and seniors and people who want to learn about cannabis. And so you just switch it up. You just switch it up. You look at what you're doing now. Or if you hate what you're doing now, that's even more reason to look into the cannabis industry and do something that you love.
I
I had no
agree.
idea I would love. You see, that's why they have so many lawyers and doctors who are miserable because they went into those professions because it was prestigious and they come from a family of that history. But the key, Jared, is to find out where your love and passion is. And that's how you make your money. That's where your
Amen.
energy goes. That's where your energy goes. And you'll be supported. You'll be supported by the universe. And they say, well, I don't know what that is. This is the biggest clue of what it is. If you don't know, if you don't know what it is, it's what comes easy to you. You take it for granted till you know, like I have a friend, she's an interior decorator. I said, God, I said, you're doing that nowhere job. Why don't you go into interior decorating? Oh, nobody would pay me for that. It's too easy. No, that's where your talents lie.
Mm-hmm. It's
Those,
like your second
those
language.
talents, exactly, those talents were given to you. Don't take them for granted. It comes easy. Most people are afraid of public speaking. They, it's number two. Death is. They say, what do you fear most in life? They say death, and number two is public speaking. Well, I love it.
I
I
love it
love it.
too.
I get butterflies at first, but then it just flows. You go to the area of least resistance, and only person that knows is you.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you don't have a clue, ask your closest friend. Say, oh, what do you think I'm good at? What do you think my best qualities are? A trusted friend,
Yep.
but yep. You'll do great if you're passionate about it and if it comes from your heart.
Yeah, I always hear, don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from.
That's great.
So it's always important to make sure that the people you have in your sphere are also positive influences because, it just takes one toxic person to destroy everything. And
You're
that's
right.
the last thing any of us need in our lives is negativity. And so I love that because for me, when I started Wick and Mortar 12 years ago, we were the very first cannabis-focused branding and marketing firm in the world. And, I looked at, what it was that I was passionate about, which was, of course, graphic design, web design, branding, and marketing. But that wasn't really focused on a niche area, nor did I feel like the work I was doing was really making a difference. And so when I decided to get into the cannabis industry, my goal was to quite literally rebrand it. It's funny how close your mission statement is to mine. Mine's to change the perception of cannabis on a global level, one brand at a time. And my mission has been that since day one, which is why I've made the services that we provide at Wick and Mortar affordable so that we can work with as many brands and companies as possible. But this podcast isn't about me. It's about you. And what I love is the fact that you are a voice for the people. And there aren't enough people like you that are willing to stand up and fight for what they believe in and for more importantly, what is right. What are some of the challenges you've had during the journey of this quote unquote fight? I'm sure you've heard numbers and statistics before as it relates to the number of African Americans incarcerated for cannabis, but can you speak to me a little bit about that and why this problem's happening in the first place?
Well, let me tell you how I got to be the trusted face of medical cannabis. This was my son's idea, not mine.
That's
It
a
was
great
my
place to
son's
start.
idea. I came in to save him from drugs, right? To pull him out. And so when we first got started, we started working with Stephen D'Angelo because he had a consulting company at that time. And when I would have to go speak, my son said, "Mom," he said, you're gonna have to take the lead. You're gonna have to do the talking." I said, "Why? I'm scared of this shit," which I was. And so he said, "Ma," he said, "I'm an African American male." He said, "They'll put me in jail. They'll incarcerate me." But he said, you, on the other hand, you know, you're older and you're a woman. He said, Mom, the rules just aren't the same for us. He said, that's why it took us so long, Jared. It took us over 10 years to get a legal permit when everybody else, especially the white community, Jamal had friends say, man, what's taking you guys so long? Just throw open. Those were the words. Just throw open. Uh, um, we've been open for 3 months. We done made millions of dollars. We don't have a permit. They just close us up. They just take our weed and close us up. Then we go to the next city. Jamal said, yeah, but I would be in prison for years if that happened to me. And that was the reality of it. So we had to do it right. We had to do whatever it took. I lobbied those Berkeley city councilmen myself. All of those other big applicants for that permit, they had a lot of money. They would just they would pay lobbyists. I lobbied them one by one, let them know who I was, that I was a reputable woman of the community. I have a lot of credibility, and told them my vision and mission of what I wanted to do to each and every one of them, including the mayor. But I had to do that. As part of being an African American, you have to go beyond, because the rules just are not the same for us, especially in the cannabis industry.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the cannabis industry. And that definitely needs to be changed. It needs to be changed. And even in the black community with Black Lives Matter, what's going to happen as African Americans have businesses? Everybody, especially the African American community, we have to patronize those businesses. Everybody has to patronize them. So, because Jerry, we don't have a black community. The Asians have a community almost in every city. The Hispanics have a community almost in every city. Um, African American, we just have communities where we live. We don't have like areas. Say, oh yeah, I'm going to Chinatown for this. I'm going on
Mm-hmm.
Fruitvale. Where where all the Hispanic businesses are. We don't have a place where all the
Mm-hmm.
African American businesses are. We just don't have that. So in order for the black community to survive, we really have to put effort into those communities, into those businesses, into those businesses.
Do you
And go ahead.
do you think that people just assume that because the African American culture, and this isn't everyone, but the African American culture is so much like, I mean, you guys are Americans. Plain and simple. Not all African Americans, because they live in other places, but African American people that live in the United States eat the same food we eat. I mean, you. What I'm trying to get at is these communities, the Asian communities and the Hispanic communities they've all migrated here, right? And so they've built these communities, as you mentioned, quote unquote, in these very specific areas. I mean, we've got a Chinatown here in Seattle as well, to your point, right? But when I look at the African American culture, I and this is probably just me and my naivety, but I don't see a huge difference between what us white Americans do versus what African Americans do and eat and drink and music and all of these things, because I share the same desire for the same music as the African American culture. I share the same love and passion for a lot of the same things, is where I feel like the Asian community and the Hispanic community are so incredibly diverse in comparison to the African American and you call it Caucasian communities or culture. So help me understand that. You're an educator, so I'm just trying to understand how we can do that, because I want to help that. I want to help you.
Well, you're absolutely correct, Jared. We're so much alike, um, because we were Americanized, you know, from the way we were brought here, on the ships, on the slave ship. Uh, you know, that's that's that culture. The Caucasian culture is what we know, and so we've
Right.
lost a lot of our heritage.
Mm.
Um, and a lot of a lot of people, they relate to, oh, my heritage is going down south, because a lot of people were born down south, and so our true heritage with uh with uh with Africa or
Hmm.
Ethiopia, all of that was all cut off from us. So what's left is 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 what was given to us, well, by the Caucasians. Even the food, say, um, they say soul food. Okay, oh, I'm going to get some soul food. Well, you know what soul food is? When they had the slaves, they would take the guts and the chitlins from the pig, which they didn't eat, and threw it out. And then the slaves who will work the farms, would go clean that stuff up, and that became the meal, the the African Americans meal: hog head cheese, chitlins,
And
uh,
grits and
a lot of pork,
greens
and all
and
of that, and
yeah.
all of that,
Yep.
all of that, all of that, and so that became it. And rather than, um, when I go online and look at authentic African dishes or Ethiopian dishes, uh, and those kinds of foods are good in moderation.
Hmm.
And so one of the reasons why my health is so good is that I don't eat those on a regular basis. I don't eat that way, because a lot of times it's a lot of grease and high in cholesterol and high in sodium.
Hmm.
And so a lot of times the African American diet, stems from way back then. But education is the key to all of it, Jared. It's just being educated about how you want to live and where you want to live and what you want to incorporate. Now, those things, I'll eat. Well, some of those things, not a lot of them. I just won't touch. But
Hmm.
I let myself eat like greens and fried chicken. I'll eat that on an occasion, but it's definitely not a regular part of my diet. Simple things like that. Um,
Is fried chicken
Having
soul
us
food?
yes.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
it's part of, so it's, yes, it's considered uh, uh, soul food. Now, you remember when do you recall, listen to this, when Tiger Woods,
Oh
when he
gosh.
won, well, you remember that? And they say one of the announcers, I think he lost his job. He said, "Oh God," he said, "now we're gonna, I guess they're gonna have fried chicken on the greens." That was a racist comment, because black people known to eat fried chicken. It's a joke, but just just things of that nature. We just all have a lot of learning and awareness that we have to do, including myself,
Hmm.
about it, because I grew up in this culture, and a lot of things I had to rethink. You know, so it's I'm glad we're having this conversation, because the more we talk about these kinds of things, the more it brings awareness to see, how, because I self reflect. I say, okay, now how am I doing with this? I never thought of it that way. I said, oh my God, I've been doing that. That is not right. Judging.
Yep.
And so it's it's all good. And too, with the cannabis industry, in in helping uh, people of color, and even people who are still afraid of using the cannabis. It's all about education. Education, education, education. the more you educate people about whatever it is they're afraid of, it helps to eliminate that fear. If they learn, when I'm doing a presentation, especially for administrators of healthcare facilities, or for people who, especially the African American community, they're my biggest obstacle. They're the ones that's most resistant to hearing anything about the cannabis. I don't try to convince anybody of anything, ever. Those who are ready for it will get it. I just go in and I educate. I just do what I do. And those who are ready for it will ask more questions and come and find out more. I don't try to
What kind
convince.
of people are you educating, and what is it that you're actually advocating? I know that you focus, obviously, and we touched on this in the very, very beginning, but you advocate for the elderly, provide a voice. There aren't many voices, I should say. And I think that, and I love this conversation because when I think of what I don't know and what I should know in order to better market the brands that we create from both the CBD sector as well as the cannabis sector as it pertains to the African American demographic as well as the elderly, right? So we've touched on the African American demographic as it pertains to a number of different things as well as cannabis, but let's move to the elderly focus for you and talk a little bit about the gap between what brands are missing and what they should be taking advantage of, respectfully speaking, of course, as it pertains to, catering to this demographic of people.
To the elders. To the elders. Now, Jared, I think I've mentioned to you before that
I'm sure you have.
one of my goals and vision and mission is to bring respect and dignity back to our elders. Because in the 2018 census, it was reported that in 10 to 15 years, the elder population will be the largest for the first time in the history of the country. So that means Social Security probably go away. Retirement age will not be 65, it'll be more like 75. But more importantly, if anybody is going to save this country, it's going to be the wisdom of elders and the youthfulness of these young people working together to build communities, build governments, and to build a better world. Is that combination, the elders' wisdom and the energy and the know-how of you young people, working together in offices, on projects, in anything that needs to be accomplished. And because of the pharmaceutical approach to healthcare, our elders, most of them are in fogs. They're in pain, and they're on from 10 to 15 to 20 pills a day, and they're still not getting any better. That's why there's such a big number of seniors using cannabis now. It's because they know what they've been doing, and they're still not getting any better. So they're trying alternatives, and cannabis has been one of them.
Yep.
And that's where I've been able to put my foot in the door. I can get in because I'm well spoken, I'm well educated, and I'm their age. If you want to promote any brand or on Canvas anything, you have to send in the right messenger. You can't send in a 20 or 30-year-old. The grandkids
Can't send me in.
No, you can't go. You got to send me. And you have to send me. If you want to convince your grandma, you can't do it, but I can talk to her where she would listen. And that has been my experience. When I speak, people listen. And you know why they listen, Jared? It's because I genuinely care. I don't have to know you.
I can tell.
It doesn't matter. Let me tell you this. I made a conscious decision a long time ago that I wanted to make the world a better place because I live. I just didn't want to exist in this world because I live. And this cannabis stuff, I didn't choose it. It chose me. It chose me. And so, with that being said, I couldn't make my transition and go to the other side, knowing that this plant is a healing medicine and I wouldn't be an advocate for it and people know and respect me. I had to. It's part of my innate ability. I know for a
Yep.
fact, Jared, it's why I came onto this earth. It's why I came, is to do this work. And how you know the work that you're doing is right is how you feel inside. That's where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
It's how it feels from within.
Mm-hmm.
It's how it
No,
feels.
that makes
It's
total
how it
sense.
feels within. Now, another thing that I do, I don't know if you're aware of it. I'm also one of the few people who's certified by the state of California to teach the cannabis program and give continuing education units to nurses, to administrators and directors of healthcare facilities. They need,
No shit.
yeah. I'm one of the few.
I did not know that. I did
Yeah,
not know that. I knew
I'm
you're an educator, obviously, but the
yeah,
depth of that, I had no idea.
yeah, and see, uh, how I got into it. I took a class years ago to find out about it, and it wasn't professionally run, and the lady forgot about me and forgot me in the office while I was taking the test. So I said I'm gonna get my own certification. So I developed a program of and I'm the perfect person because I didn't know anything about cannabis. So I said, okay, this is what they need to know. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they need to know the basics about the cannabis, what it does and it does not do. Just simple stuff, you know. And so I geared my so when they take my class at Pharmacy Berkeley, when they take my class to get the credits, I have a 2 hour class and a 4 hour class, and they could get those units that's pertaining to what they need. And I put up the best information, and I have a presentation to help
Mm-hmm.
them gear. Because let me tell you this: those administrators of those facilities that's dealing with, especially with the aging population, they see those
Mm-hmm.
people in pain, and it hurts them, and they can't do it, and they know those pills that they're taking is not working. So
Yeah.
they want to be able to go to the adult children of those people in the elder communities that are there to say, look, maybe you should try this because this is what I've learned. You see, they love the people that are in those facilities, so they want help for them. And there's not many people who
Mm-hmm.
could come in and just give them information that they trust, because a lot of people in the industry are young people. And so when they find somebody that's older, that has some credibility, they'll listen. They'll listen. And so,
Now, let's talk about something as it pertains to science a bit, only because this is obviously important if we are, together going to, truly change the perception of cannabis and rebrand this industry. We have to be mindful of the fact that, when people are consuming cannabis, are they actually getting 100% of the plant's original profile, thus the effects that are intended, right? From a medicinal perspective or for just the sheer euphoria perspective. But for medical patients and for physicians, if a physician is going to recommend, a patient cannabis, they have to be able to prove without a doubt that the method of which they consume that cannabis is going to result in the desired outcome of that strain specificity. But if through decarboxylation, when you smoke a joint or light a bowl, if you're losing, 70 to 80% of the plant's original profile, are you ever really getting the true effects from the medicine as it was originally intended? No. So like, how do we help? There are obviously, technologies out there that have found a way to fix that through capsules. But what is your input or experience on, cannabis as a medicine from the scientific perspective? Yeah.
Well, I don't know much
I know
about
I threw you a curveball, but
yeah, I don't know much about the scientific all that what they because they say to me, well, the FDA hasn't approved it, so it's not so I'm not going to touch it. And so my take on it, I know that cannabis, um, uh, the endocannabinoids, okay, uh, we have this is what I explained. We have endocannabinoids. We were we have an endocannabinoid system in our body. We were born with it. The endocannabinoid system was made was put in our system to cause balance in the body. Back in the day, before all the pollutions, before all the crappy foods that we're eating, all the pesticides and all of that, if the body had any kind of discord in it, the endocannabinoids would go to work on healing the body, self-healing the body. It would do it. It was automatic. But today, because of the pollutants, all the crap that's in our food for rapid growth to gain money and all of that, endocannabinoids cannot do its job. Cannabis works because it has endocannabinoid. If you ingest cannabis, now I'm not talking about the cannabis you buy at CVS, some good homegrown, sun-grown, good weed, as you guys would say, grown. The patient ingests that. It teams up with our natural endocannabinoids and cause healing in the body. That's why the cancer cells stops growing. That's why the tumors shrink. You see, because if you have that combination, and that's what, and then one of your questions that you had sent to me is, where do we go? Where do we go with this cannabis? We're going to have to be very mindful, Jared, because once the pharmaceutical companies and the Coca-Cola companies get into the business of cannabis, people will go for the cheapest thing, and because they learn how to cut costs, but they cut it, and it's not just good cannabis. We have
commoditized.
we have to keep it. We have to keep our plant pure,
Sacred.
sacred. We have to, because it's a spiritual plant. You can't put you can't put junk in with it. It just has to be some. You have to know where you get it from. You have to you have to know where you get your cannabis from and what's in it.
I think that also depends, and this is what makes the cannabis industry so incredibly complex and beautiful, and that's that, and unique, and that's that. It's like, I think the only product in the world that I've ever seen that, or can think of, and I just smoked a joint, so I can't think of much right now, but it's the only thing that I can think of that caters to both the medical, recreational, and wellness market segments. So generally where you see products with packaging languages like wine and beer or coffee, they all share this universal packaging language. Coffee's got deep roast, morning blend, and so forth. Beer, they have their language, and every brand that comes into those categories embodies that vernacular and then develops products along with it, which are pretty much their own variations, right? Their own brewing styles, if you will. And the cannabis industry doesn't have that. It did. We were using indica, sativa, and hybrid, but we realized later on that everything was really a hybrid, and really nothing is sativa dominant or actually even indica dominant. It's really based on each person's individual interpretation as to how they feel. But if you smoke too much, it becomes a sedative. If you don't smoke enough, you might not get high depending on your tolerance. So it's like, there's a huge, conversation around dosage and, how much should I consume? And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that to me has been, really fascinating as a problem to solve as we, try to rebrand cannabis. We're inventing new ideas, making conjectures and suggestions as they relate to previous experiences that we've had as well as witnessed others. And so, I wonder when we're going to get to a point where we can say for certainty and without a doubt that this strain will do exactly this, and this is how effective it will be based on this amount of based on this dosage amount. How do you feel this translates across the elderly community when I feel like the elderly community sometimes is also the most difficult to convince because they're always, not always, most are very stuck in their ways. You, on the other hand, have been a shepherd of information as that transition from cannabis into the elderly community. How have you been able to communicate that? Was that just through your own personal experiences with the plant, or just tell me about that?
Well, one thing about, working with elders, I don't recommend edibles too much. Number one, they're used to taking pills. You see, they're pill people because it's Jared, I just have to make this distinction. I'm not a doctor.
Please.
And the pharmaceuticals have its place, but pharmaceutical drugs were made for temporary use, not to manage your health. You see the difference?
Yep.
People they'll go to the doctor for immediate ailment, and then you're supposed to figure out on your own some natural ways to get off those drugs. Then 10 years later, if you find yourself on those same pills, something's wrong. But if you're in a car accident, okay, if I get into a car accident, I don't want any cannabis for anesthesia. You give me them drugs that you have, them pharmaceutical drugs to keep me under, whatever those are. You see, the problem is, I shouldn't be on them 10 years from now. You get off of those drugs. You see, so
Well, yeah. Well, but with cannabis though, like if you had skin cancer, for example, and you didn't want to consume cannabis, you didn't want to ingest it, you didn't want to smoke it.
Yeah.
CBD rather, for that matter too as well. But if you use it for your skin, you're using it as a medicinal product then at that point. But if you look at like Ricky Williams' brand, Real Wellness, when he left the NFL, he became an herbalist. And you look at, all of his different remedies as they pertain to solving different things from immunity balance to this or that. And so like, then you have that wellness side, which to your point is like almost nutraceutical, maintenance, right? And that's like, and then you have recreational, but it's like, it's so confusing for a lot of people, right?
It is.
Do I need medical? Do I need recreational? Do I need wellness? What's the difference? How do I distinguish,
Jared, see, everybody has to know their body. You know what works for your body. Now, one of the reasons why I don't recommend edibles like potato chips, brownies, and cookies and stuff for elders, because I remember eating a cookie that had cannabis in it. Well, those cookies were so damn good. I ate a whole bunch of them, and oh my God, I didn't want to touch any kind of cannabis ever again because it was such a bad experience. See, I don't want that to happen to the elders. So I rarely recommend. Who can eat one potato chip? Who can eat two kernels of popcorn with cannabis in it? Who can do that? So it's too hard to monitor. Now, the younger generation, they can, and I don't see anything wrong with this. Um, instead of drinking like one of those Moscow mules drink with the vodka, I can't think of the name. We sell it
That's
at our
my favorite drink, by the way.
yeah, they say, okay,
That is my favorite drink,
look,
by the way.
there's a cannabis drink where you put a little ginger beer in it, and it tastes just like that. Uh, I haven't tried it, but uh, people drink that, and I think that's good if you just ingest that and just chilling, instead of straight alcohol all the time. Try that. That's okay. But everything is in moderation and knowing your body. When for just to enjoy that, or just like you enjoy sharing a joint. It's a glass. You hold it in your hand and you drink it with some ice, and it's like the Moscow Mule. That's what they told me. But for the elder population, the tinctures um, works well, and the rubs and the balms for arthritis that you could just apply. The patches work, things of that nature. And then they also have the
Mm-hmm.
capsules that will work. But
Mm-hmm.
it's too much for to think about. And this is another thing that's key when you're working with the elders. You have to start low and slow. Low dosage, and you go slow, and you write it down. If it's a husband and wife team, the one who's not on the cannabis is to write down a half hour later or 45 minutes later what the results are, how you're feeling, and your pain alleviated. Just keep a journal of it. But um, it's I've worked with so many seniors that when I was working at Harborside as doing the senior outreach and bringing people to his dispensary and at my own, they say, Miss Sue, I'm not using my cane anymore. Miss Sue, I'm not in my wheelchair anymore. Miss Sue, I'm traveling now. I'm traveling now. It's those things that convinced me that cannabis worked. It wasn't anything that Jamal
Mm-hmm.
sent me that I read. It wasn't anything that when I Googled, it was witnessing all of those people saying that they were feeling better and doing better because they were using the cannabis in some form or fashion, even in smoking it.
You should make a journal app for the elderly, something where you
Yeah.
can like text or talk into it, so that way it records. So that way it records, their thoughts and feelings as they relate to, each strain they try, so that they can start to measure, um,
Okay.
the
Now,
feeling.
Jared, you just
Uh,
proved my point. I said elders and young people working together to come up with solutions.
hey, that's
That's
what this
it.
podcast is all about. I want to rebrand an industry. You want to rebrand an industry. You want to make this a better place for everyone. And more importantly, you want others to feel like they've obtained the education they need and certainly deserve in order to make a conscious decision as to how they'd like to integrate, or if they'd like to integrate cannabis or any cannabinoid for that matter into their life. Um, I guess, at the end of the day, like, what's you mentioned earlier, what you would do or what you would suggest for people that are looking to break into the industry. But for those that are already in this industry and are building brands, much like myself, what are some tips and suggestions that you could suggest for us to focus on as we're building brands for the elderly community? You said one, and that was hire you to be to be the advocate. So noted. And by the way, for all of you listeners, Sue Taylor is also one of our mentors with our nonprofit, High Grade Hope. So you can check that out at highgradehope.com. But Sue, what would you do, and how would you answer that question?
Well, a lot of the brands that are coming out now, they don't. Number one, they don't cater to the elders. The brands are not for us. So when I'm doing my presentations and people want to know how they want to get into the industry or what they should do, I always say, please make products that geared toward the aging population. You know, like the topicals, like the
Mm-hmm.
bombs. Think more of those those kinds of things, and even the tinctures. But you know what? Because of the child-proof regulations, the tinctures, the bottles are even hard for some seniors to even get into. Um, the packaging,
I was going to ask about that.
make sure the packaging they can get into them, because that's a real challenge.
The font type too.
The font type,
That's huge.
yes, yes, it is huge. That's one of the things when we're developing Mama Sue Wellness products. I have 3 products: um, sleep relief, pain relief, and extra strength pain relief of my products. And Jared, most seniors go to cannabis for 2 reasons: sleep and pain. And so that's why I came up with those with the Mama Sue Wellness, the sleep formula, and the pain, because those are the main things that the elderly population work with. And um, I am gonna expand that to more rubs and topicals for just to apply on the body. But I would hope people who are in the industry now that they keep the aging population in mind, because if you want to know how to make some money, that's where the money is in the aging population. Um, that's we're gonna be the largest demographic. Uh, Cannabis help us the most because we have the most pain. We're the ones that are experiencing all of this, and we're looking for relief, and we don't
Well, what
want.
about, I was going to say, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but what about products that pertain to, creating a younger you, right? Serums and things of that nature. I was watching a documentary and they were talking about how some gal in Europe decided that it would be a good idea to use bee venom, because what it does is it inflames the skin enough to kind of fill in the wrinkles. And there are some kind of medicinal modalities attached to that. But, cannabis and CBD are being used to deliver some or similar results.
Wow.
Is that something that's important to
Yes.
the elderly community? And
Yes.
how can we learn from those types of products?
Well, no, I think that would. I think I would try it. Because of course, uh, a natural way to say to eliminate some wrinkles. You know, I mean, that's awesome. That's new. That's a real. That's another elders and young people coming up with ideas and natural ways.
Well, I'm just wondering how niche the elderly like to get, how focused are they in the purchasing decisions that they make? Because I know that depending on how old you are, if you live in a senior care facility, you might not be making all of the decisions for yourself. You might have someone helping you make those decisions. So, what kind of education can we provide to the elderly to help them become more informed as to the products that do exist and don't exist? So that, like you said, you and me, we can work together to create those types of brands.
Exactly. And look, I'm 73 years old. I ride my bike 5 to 6 miles at least 5 times a week. I go to boot camp. I'm very active. I'm an active 73-year-old. And yes, I would develop products to help with the youthful look, because we need it, and I want to look naturally more youthful as I age. And so um, many elders, they would gravitate to that instead of, because a lot of people use, and I look at the entertainment industry with all that plastic surgery where they look so placid, where they face just don't have any character anymore.
I don't like that.
Neither do I. I don't even
It
recognize
doesn't look
half
natural
those.
to me.
It doesn't.
I know. It's like,
I don't even
who are
recognize
you?
them. I don't. But so, boy, that would be a great industry, a great product to develop. Natural ways.
Yeah.
Maybe Ricky could come up with something like that.
Yeah, we probably could.
You know?
We've got some pretty big brains over here. I think we could
Yeah,
devise something kind of nice.
yeah, yeah. It's been great. I mean, that's some great. That's good. You have a lot of great
Well, yeah,
ideas,
I think.
Jared.
Thank you, thank you. I'm just trying to figure out. I think one of the reasons why I like having people like you on the show is because I don't know everything. I'm a student and a teacher. A good friend of mine, Lyle, once told me the teacher will appear when the student is ready.
That's right.
Means you can learn anything from anybody at any time. You just have to be willing to listen. And my mom, you know what she says to me? She says, Jared, you know why God gave you 2 ears and one mouth? Because you should be doing twice as much listening as you should be talking.
That's great. That's a
Yep.
good one. That's awesome. Yeah, I think for all of us, no matter the age, no
Gotta love the
matter.
mom, right? Gotta love the mom.
Yes.
So, one thing that, I didn't mention, and this was something that you had kind of talked about earlier, is, you're an educator at, these facilities where nurses are actually trained to do their job in both the, what you might call what would you call it? The Western medicine
Mhm.
sector? Is that what
Mhm.
you'd call that? Right. And then they've got, obviously these other naturopathic modalities. My stepmother, Patty, she's an educator at a facility that basically teaches nurses how to do what they do, get them certified over in California. I'd love to make the introduction to the both of you to see if there's an opportunity to help create more awareness and education where she's providing it currently.
Mm.
Is that something that you could develop as a program for other facilities or other, what do you call them, education centers, schools? It's not a college per
No,
se.
no. Now,
It's a certification.
it's a now for the administrators of the nurses. They have to have these 12 or 16 credits a year to keep their certification active. And so they have to take classes to learn something. It doesn't matter what. And many of them are coming because they want to learn about cannabis. So they have to get, they have to come to take a certified class to get those certifications. And so,
Got it.
so somebody has to develop a program so that could happen, and it has to be approved by the state.
I think you'd be the perfect person to do that, especially starting with with the state of California, being it's the largest. What would it take to put together? I mean, you've already done this for one,
Yeah,
for
it,
one place.
it,
I mean,
it
what would it take to do it and duplicate that?
yeah. Well, it took a lot of work. I'm not so sure I'm ready to recreate that again. But uh, I would love to talk to who is it that you mentioned was doing that?
It's my stepmother, Patty. Yeah,
What's her
she
name?
used to
What's
be,
her
she used to,
last name?
Mersky, same as mine. She married my dad. She used to run the cardiac arrest floor at Virginia Mason here in Seattle. She's lived in Orange County for a
Okay,
very long time
Orange
now.
County, because I was
But
working with a Patty. Was wondering. Hmm. Anyway, I'll think about that.
well, if Patty was working with you, she would have told me about you a
Oh,
long
okay.
time ago. I
All
can
right.
promise you that. Yeah.
All right.
You're a hard person to forget. Um, and anytime she gets a chance to talk about cannabis, she's always like, "Hey, I
Oh,
met
okay.
someone." Same with my dad. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's
Well,
awesome.
Sue, you've been an awesome guest, and I can't thank you enough for the education that you've provided my guests as well as myself. I've learned a lot more from this conversation than I thought I would. So I really, really appreciate the wisdom and knowledge you've dropped. Um, where can people find you?
Um. Well, for one, I would like for them to follow me on Instagram, Mama Sue Wellness, and also um, buy my products because they work. You can get them at Pharmacy Berkeley, the Pottery in Los Angeles, Pharmacy Santa Barbara, and Blood and Broom in Orange County. And You could also reach me at info@pharmacyberkeley.com. And so, and visit us. Visit us at Pharmacy Berkeley. We're going to be hopefully we should be opening for back in store. Right now, we're just doing curbside, but they're moving toward people coming to the store again, and that would be awesome because I would be there and could greet some of you and even have meetings there. I haven't been there in a while. Um, because of the pandemic and there's no inside
Yep.
thing, but it's still moving right along. Um,
Now, actually, before I let you go, and I know that you have a meeting you got to jump to in 15 minutes, but I've just got to hear your input as it relates to COVID. Given you're so involved in the elderly community, is there what are you doing to help remedy this pandemic?
to be quite honest with you, Jared, is to stay sane myself because it's been quite challenging. The isolation, and every chance I get when I'm talking, I reach out, and when I have doing podcasts such as this one, is they reach out to the to the older population because we're affected by it the most. Um, they say
Yeah.
the first thing I haven't been working at Pharmacy Berkeley since March. February 17th, I think they sent me home, and that was one of the worst things they could have done. I really had to do some soul searching, and my grandkids couldn't come visit. Oh, that was so hard, Jared. So reach out to
Hmm.
your loved ones who are older and who are sheltering in place. A phone call. Do FaceTime calls because that's better than a phone call. You get to see them and call
Yeah.
people on a regular basis. Your grandma, your aunties, your neighbors, things of that nature. Because
Hmm.
it's been,
Hmm.
it's almost like we've been targeted. It's just
Yeah. My parents are in their 70s, and my uncle Nick, my mom's brother, he just passed away last about a week and a half ago because of COVID.
oh
So rest in peace, Uncle Nick.
yeah
But that's kind of why I asked, just because you're a voice for the community, and I don't know if all seniors realize how important their lives are, and you've certainly shared with me how really important they are, to us now and in the future.
yes
Um,
yes
so I
yes.
really appreciate you, Sue, so much,
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, this is Sue Taylor, friends, on another episode of Rebranding Cannabis. Till next time, take care, stay high.